Let's take a look at this last two sets of equations here. I am noticing that I have got a lot of jumbling going on. In the first equation, it's not quite in standard form because the constant, the 37, is on the left-hand side. The first thing I'm going to do is just go ahead and identify all of my different things. I'm not going to highlight my x's, but I'll highlight my y's. Oh, third equation doesn't even have one. I'll highlight my z's. And I will highlight my constants. All right, let's go ahead and get to work. This first row, I know that I'm going to start with a 2 for the x's, a -7 for the y, a 1 for the z. However, this 37 should really be on the other side of the equation, so we would need to subtract it from both sides, giving us a -37 on the right. Here's the next one. We have 10 for our x. Our y is on the wrong side, so it needs to move over. It's currently positive, but we're going to have to subtract it from both sides, giving us a -4. -3z, and we have a +9. Finally, in our last row, I have a 5 in the x position. I have no y's at all, so I'm going to write a 0. I have a -2 for my z, so that's going to need to move over. The negative becomes positive because we need to add to both sides, so that's going to be a regular 2. And then the -13 needs to move to this side, giving me a +13. If that was a little confusing for you, take a look at the filled-in copy of the notes where I go through the entire process of adding and subtracting the variables from both sides. One last thing to note on this is that we still have a 3x4 matrix. We have one final problem that we just went to write the matrix before we get into actually solving. Again, I can see that there's some jumbling going on, so I'm going to go ahead and identify where my y's are, where my z's are. Oh, the first equation doesn't have a z. And where my constants are. All right, so now that I've done that, I'm ready to start writing my matrix. I'm going to start with the very first equation, which has a 9 in the x position and a -1 in the y position. I don't see any z's, so that means that we have 0 of them, so I'm going to write a 0. And then on the other side of the equation, I have my constant of -4. The second equation, the 2x is on the wrong side, so it's going to need to come over. Remember that we would subtract 2x from both sides, giving me a -2 as a coefficient, followed by 4, 8, and then 3. Finally, the last line, I have a 5, I have a 2, and then this 8 needs to come over to the other side, making it a -8 because we would have to subtract -8z. And then once I do that, I have nothing left on the right, so that becomes a 0. Again, if you need to see that algebra done in detail, please take a look at the filled-in notes that are provided to you. Finally, we have a 3x4 matrix.